Apologies, good people, for my having to split the scene early last night. I took suddenly ill. It's been happening a little bit to me lately. I think my sugar drops or something like that when I go more than 5 minutes without some kind of a tasty snack. Anyway, I am just fine. And thanks very much for the concern you guys expressed to me on social media and via text. Off and on rain this afternoon. The mountain main is muddy, and the only grass race that was scheduled tonight will go over to the main footing, right on over to the main footing. Welcome into the dungeon, where we will discuss our deepest, darkest handicapping secrets. You guys know the drill. Not a tout, not going to post picks, just a second opinion. This will go back and forth, hopefully, with some lively debate. Oh, by the way, had a chance to look at that first race disqualification from last night they had on, and I watched it several times and just have got to say that was an horrendous disqualification. Very bad decision on the part of the stewards. Lousy, lousy, lousy. I think you would be hard pressed to find anybody that would concur with their call that the 8-horse should come down in there. The 3 to 5 winner was disqualified. And again, I'm not sure you could find anybody, any seasoned observer that knows anything about watching horse races that would agree with that call. And I certainly disagree vehemently, as they say. Totally disagree with that call. Disqualification in yesterday's first race. Welcome in. Much appreciated. Get lively. Get in the comments, please. And if you manage to make the scene, please like and subscribe. It does help me. I think we're up to 204 subscribers or something like that now. Not too bad, huh? We're getting there, little by little by little. I think I've got to reach 500 to realize any kind of monetary benefit and begin to pay for this equipment in here. But I think maybe we'll get there. Let's glance at the daily double. The will pays, and the money hasn't really poured in yet. The great and powerful laws has not spoken yet in the daily double pool. But didn't we have one daily double last week that paid an historic low, 2 to 5, $2.80? Well, if the 11-1 combo clicks on this all main track daily double tonight, it's going to pay more than 2 to 5, more than 280, but maybe not a whole lot more, huh? More. Anyway, we'll say that much. First race. Yeah, I was sitting here, and by the way, I was drinking nothing but soda pop last night. I don't get sick like that anyways, and I don't really get drunk. I just get in a real good mood. When I drink a little bit too much, I get garrulous, very talkative, and I start to think I know everything and I'm the smartest guy in the room in a friendly way, not an argumentative way. So I guess maybe that's not real different than my cold, sober personality. But it's been happening to me a little bit lately. Not really concerned about it, and I am okay, guys. And again, apologies because I had to leave and log off before yesterday's finale. First race was lined up to be a mile on the turf, make it 1 mile in that muddy mountain main. This is the ever-popular starter optional race. These are run for $5,000 or less, or else they're straight up in for the $10,000 claiming price. And on paper, it probably boils down to a couple of horses, and one of those horses is going to be a prohibitive favorite, as they say. And I'm darn sure about that. Number 11, Canadian Bear. Jay Bernardini sometimes enters dirt horses on turf in hopes the races come off the turf. He was one of the first to pioneer that, and I have never understood why horsemen weren't doing that years ago. As a matter of fact, when I used to hustle races in the office, I would call trainers up that had good dirt horses that fit some of the turf races and tell them, there's rain in the forecast, man. So why don't you go ahead and enter? And if it comes off the grass, it could scratch down to 3 or 4. You're probably going to be 2 to 5. They were really reluctant to do that. Jay Bernardini's never been reluctant to do that. It's not like Canadian Bear can't handle turf. The Bear is a one-time winner from 12 tries on grass. But when you compare the last 2 races, the 2-back try on turf and the most recent race on dirt, then you can see where Jay was certainly hoping, as were his clients of the Dunstals, that this race would flip over to dirt. And I'm sure they were hoping in the worst way. Canadian Bear won this same race last time to the post and won it stirringly by widening 7 lengths. Canadian Bear was way back early, more than is her custom, because she missed the break completely there and spotted that field a few lengths did Canadian Bear. So she was a ton the best there on June the 28th. Now, it wasn't a bad spot to be in, to be well behind that torrid pace set by a horse that really can't get a full distance of ground on dirt, take wings. She can do it on turf, but on dirt, you better not run her further than 6 furlongs or even 5.5. So it's Canadian Bear's race to lose. And she outclasses the opposition on the entirety of her form there. You can see where she wins a 2 other than allowance. Ed Mahoning comes back and has to go for the $25,000 tag and some kind of an allowance option. Well, beats Larimar, who's been up to her old tricks with a couple of big wins, an extremely big win in one of those newfangled ratings handicaps just last week, I think. And I am going to post a video. I will drop a video about that race in particular, that ratings handicap, which I think exposes both. Did I just invent a new word? Which I think exposes maybe some of the flaws in the ratings handicap, the Equibase ratings handicap system. I think the obvious horse the Canadian Bear backers would have to worry about here is number 2, Snappin' Buttons. For one thing, Snappin' Buttons is the only other runner in here with the ability to beat Canadian Bear. And she would have to flash back to some of her classy form there. Snappin' Buttons, who was 1 for 1 over the track, but that was a lowly, now 112-month, $4,000 claimer. So this is about 12 class hikes built into one for her to take on Canadian Bear. The difference between a 2 other than or a $25,000 claimer, likes of which Canadian Bear has taken the measure of, and a 4,000, now 112 months, again, it's about 12 different class levels, all the way up through the conditions and all the way up through the claiming prices and all the options along the way. Now, Snappin' Buttons might be able to monopolize the speed here, unless Suffering Succotash, the 4, happens to flash back and remember that she used to have some early foot, likewise for number 7, the Shoe Lady. But it's not unlikely that Snappin' Buttons would get to control the tempo here from a favorable post position. And if you backtrack on her page there, she has run just 15 times and made $170,000, and she's won a couple of allowance races, non-claimers, at the New York Majors with some sprightly buyer speed figs way up into the 70s. And she's got a lot of speed. She's been vying for the lead at 6 furlongs on her form there and a straight-up handicap race, and has led throughout at a 1-turn mile over that now defunct Aqueduct Oval, Snappin' Buttons. Now, here's where she kind of hits the skids. There's a voided claim on her on June the 26th there of 2025 at Aqueduct, at which point something's not right for the claim to be voided. And she disappears for a long time, pops up to run once in February, and then absent again until May. So she may have some serious physical issues. It's old school theory to drop a horse boldly, to go boldly where no horse has gone before, in for a cheap claiming price with a one-try deal to get a horse eligible for starter allowance condition, some sinister master plot to do that. And that kind of stuff went out in the 1970s. Nobody risks a good horse just to get that horse eligible for starter allowance competition. It just doesn't happen. And I can tell you, and this is the kind of thing I can say here on my own YouTube channel, words the type of which I couldn't utter when I worked in the industry on the Mountaineer feed. I guarantee you, this particular barn, would have had a protection and claim in for Snappin' Buttons if they were that all-fire worried about losing her, or considered her starter allowance potential earnings to be that lucrative in the future. Do you feel what I'm saying? You guys know what a protection claim is, right? Anyways, Snappin' Buttons has certainly got the history and the performance level to win this. She's going to have to do better than she did first time over the course there, but she got the feel of the grounds, and she is protected tonight from claim is Snappin' Buttons. Suffering Succotash. Suffering Succotash, I think, won 2 in a row, was a long shot, like 10-1, and then like 40-1 or something like that. A couple of seasons back there, did Suffering Succotash. She was a revelation when she went over here to Tomas Martinez and kind of helped make his bones as a long shot trainer. Suffering Succotash, she's a Mockin, and those are always a little bit suspect at 2 turns. I think she's better on turf, and that's the case with some of the Moccans as well. Her last couple of wins have been on grass. And when she closed all that ground there on June the 7th, I would hold the phone about being overly super impressed with that, because that pace was so torrid. It was sci-fi stuff, literally, with an amount of speed in there to prove it. And it was easy to close in a race that was much faster early. just a supersonic speed early than it was late. So I'm not sure she proved much about her current form. Blinging Burr looks overmatched here off that 15,000 non-three life one. You got to read the header. That was a never three life ever. Blinging Bird. Never been a fan of hers either. The Shoe Lady's interesting. The Shoe Lady's won a lot of route races, and the Shoe Lady has maybe not been shown to best advantage in some of her recent draws. Miss Fussy Pants beats her in a starter on May the 18th, and Miss Fussy Pants is industrial strength and used to be a closer herself. And when she gets the lead there mid-turn, nobody could rally by her. The Shoe Lady gave it a game attempt there. At the time before, the Shoe Lady's closing late in a race that was unsuitably short for her. 5.5 furlongs. And I think the track was speed biased on top of that. Now, if she just hated turf completely last time, we're not quite to the dog ate her homework yet and extending her excuses. And I wouldn't be surprised to see her get a piece of this. Carlo Tuck, a non-contender. Memento Me, the 2 wins over the last 2 years and all but one of the placings have been in off-turf races. Still does not see her bluff called. She gets to run in another off-turf race, but at a much higher level than she's been in the last couple of times in those starter 4s. Big difference between Take Wings and a dirt mile. And the horses that beat her last time in that starter allowance taken off the turf, those were bad horses. $4,000 horses that finished first and second. I just don't think she's good enough. I don't think she won 6 furlongs and came flying late last time at 6 furlongs. I don't think she's good enough to beat a couple of these horses. I truly don't. Number 12, As Lucky. As Lucky got a soft lead. She's usually a closer or a stalker and got an Arabian pace and fell out of there on top from the 1 post to beat mere 3 lifers and bottom caliber horses at that at an inflated 3 life 12.5 claim or 2 back. And just based on that, I would have a hard time making her much of a major player in here, guys. So I'm going to flip over and take a look at the odds here real quick at 1 minute to post. And 6-5 on Canadian Bear. And the second favorite, very obviously, is going to be Snapping Buttons. Canadian Bear completely missed a break last time. She's got 6 horses by my count to her inside. And one of my race flow notes, as you can see on the big banner in red I have there, is can Snapping Buttons cut that first corner and control the tempo here? And how does Canadian Bear position from a wide-ish post when you have 6 inside of you at a mile? That's kind of where your problems begin. The 7 post sees a big drop-off in performance from the 6 post at a mile. If she breaks, I think she can easily outfoot the 9 and 10 horses and get some kind of position. If she misses the break, maybe she just tucks over and straight up closes like she did last time. But I think the race flow is mildly interesting here. And I'm not saying it could concede another slow start, could contain the seeds of defeat for Canadian Bear, but it's possible if Snapping Buttons fires anything resembling performer ability and completely controls the pace. A little surprised on the board, number 12, As Lucky to be as low as 9-2. I'm not seeing it. I'm just not feeling that at all. So anyways, good luck here. I'll be back after the race. Boy, speed kills in off-turf races, and snapping buttons with that back form from New York certainly had the back form to win this and just take it right to the house. You figured snapping buttons was going to control the pace, and that was my race flow note. I can snapping buttons cut the first corner and completely dictate the tempo? And the answer to that was yes. And also, how's Canadian Bear going to break? Canadian Bear missed the start last time and ran much the best. No such excuse in here. But Canadian Bear, I thought, after the long, hard campaign and all the grueling races, was a little flat for the first 5.5 furlongs. It just didn't fire like she did last time. Canadian Bear ran well, but was never going to beat snapping buttons there. Snapping buttons wanted to go around again, it looked like, when she charged back to be unsaddled. They're snapping buttons. Did you watch the Barbarian in the home stretch there? And he's a guy that rides right on the edge and takes every advantage that he can. I think he was concerned with not letting the 12 horse between him and the winner, maybe more than catching the winner, because I think he could sense that bird had flown. But you see him sticking right-handed and trying to pinch the 12 off and keep the 12 horse from beating him for second. I don't think that Canadian Bear is going to be that close to as lucky that far into the race if Canadian Bear is firing any facsimile of her A game there. So I don't think we saw her on her best or anywhere near her best in here. And snapping buttons, it's the age-old story. You get the loose speed at an off-turf race, and that speed just goes all the way on top. Almost $8, $7.80 on snapping buttons to win it there, who was now starter eligible for Lord knows how long. The way they write them out in Mountaineer, the way we wrote them, would have been starter eligible until the end of 2027. And I'm going to check the comments on her. I see where my man Lyrics caught me in a mistake. I guess I posted July 7th. That's going to be archived, and it's July 6th. So I'm not sure I can fix that. So welcome in, guys. Andy, Michael, Trackman, Aaron, Joey, David, Mike from Philadelphia, Jerry, good man, good friend of mine, Dave, Banger is back. And there's my man Lyrics, Norman Williams, Eric from New Jersey. You guys are all my friends. Wayne Blanchard, and Hubert Gaffney, good handicapper there. Bombs away. Bob Grant's in the house. This is Eric from New Jersey. So welcome in, and welcome to you too, Rex. Rex says, bet the Grays in the mud. Well, it didn't work out so well there, did it? Rex, my man. But looked like you might have the right idea going in. 6 furlongs for the second race. I don't think that was part of some master plan, because most of these outfits would have put a protection claim in if they were running snapping buttons at a level they didn't want to lose her for last time, with some grandiose plan to get eligible and dominate the future starter allowance races. Most of them would have seen to a claim being deposited on their own horse. They're snapping buttons, and that's just how it works behind the scenes. Second race, 6 furlongs, maiden special weight, threes and ups. And somebody just posted the 3 is a low daily double. I got a hard time believing that. Are you guys telling me Cowboy Roy is a lower pay than Sonny's Prize from the inside here, or than Fiction, the 7 for that matter? Can somebody post and let me know? Because my will pays, my daily double grid doesn't always pull up and work on my wagering platform here. Cowboy Roy, a Marshall Godsey train. He's having his best year ever, and that takes in a lot of good territory. He's 8 for 23 on the year. This is the guy that conditions Kosher Cowboy, Marshall Godsey. Now, this Cowboy Roy, has a front-running style, but that's about all he shares in common with the legendary Kosher Cowboy, the open allowance ace with unfrontable early speed. Cowboy Roy has run some big back numbers. I think Bayard 74 at an on-claimer on dirt at Fairgrounds there at this 6 furlong distance, but has seen a considerable drop-off in performance since then. I got back to turf, got back to synthetics, and just tailed off and lost his mojo. I thought flipping back to dirt might flip a switch for Cowboy Roy last time. It did not. Cowboy Roy at 6-5. The 6-5 favorite was up the track. I just never flashed anything. Now, moving him out to 6 furlongs with the speed that he has displayed in most of his races, you would think would maybe enable this horse to see some speed relief and maybe flash back to some happier performances. But I think the waters are pretty deep here in this particular maiden special race. I don't think that he sees much in the way of speed relief. There were a lot of quicksters in his last race, but what about Sonny's Prize? Sonny's Prize is no slouch to the first couple of calls in his own right, and I'm going to go by what I see. There's an old expression: when somebody tells you who they are or shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And my first look at Cowboy Roy did not impress me. I like the barn, but there's no particular reason this season for sure that a Marshall Godsey horse should not fire better than that. First time over the track, for sure. Sonny's Prize on the inside here. Sonny's Prize was second in an extremely fast race at Mahoney on April the 8th. Now, Total Silence, a J-Rad horse that was, I think, shipping in from the bigs, maybe Aqueduct or something like that. And I kind of bought the Beyer fig, hook, line, and sinker. I should have been more skeptical because I lost some subsequent bets on Total Silence. I don't think the number was quite for real, but I get the point. They ran very fast on April the 8th at Mahoney when Sonny's Prize was second there at a non-bet 10-1, first time to the post. So when Sonny's Prize comes here off that bodacious integer, that Beyer figure, Sonny's Prize gets pounded to 1-10 there, 10 cents on the dollar. Sonny's Prize doesn't get the job done. Sonny's Prize loses 43 points off a speed fig that's looking more and more bogus. Is Total Silence, the winner of that, I think is still a never 2 anyways. So Sonny's Prize, if you take his most recent race and just separate it from the herd here and just judge him on that April the 27th and forget that inflated number, what it might or might not have been, and his first ever career outing there. And I think he ran pretty well on April the 27th, if you could forget the fact that he was 10 cents on the dollar, because he was out there on a hard-earned lead on sizzling fractions for that level. You can see where the race was extremely fast early and slow late, and understandably slow late, because Boris Badenoff, who was the winner, brought a ton of early speed. For some big purse races at Turfway Park did Boris Badenoff, and Boris Badenoff just pushed and dogged and hounded Sonny's Prize the entire trip, was still standing at the finish in a race that really didn't have anybody to close or come on late and capitalize on that slow final segment. Now, you put Sonny's Prize in here and you take Boris Badenoff out of the equation, and if Cowboy Roy doesn't wake up in a big hurry and remember some of the speed that he used to have at Fairgrounds and Turfway and Colonial and places like that, then I think Sonny's Prize is going to be long gone in this race. And I also think he's going to be bet accordingly. In fact, I listed him. I was bold enough to list him as one of the misconceived price points of the evening. And there were a lot to choose from tonight because I think, and I don't know what the daily double will pays are, I still think he's going to be lower than 2-1 when the smoke clears here. Daily double will pay, somebody's posting $22.80 on the one horse and just $19.40 on the 3-horse Cowboy Roy. That is astonishing to me. Just completely surprising. Yeah, Michael, I get it. Godsey takes money, but they can't settle him up and let him run. And I really wonder It's not like some long shot won the first race, which invalidates the Daily Double Wheel pace comparatively. The horse that won the first race was pretty logical. Second favorite at 5-2. A lot of folks had to be on board there with good handicapping. And I guess the same logic that led them to that horse led them to Cowboy Roy in the second instead of Sonny's Prize. This surprises me. It really does. On paper, you got a third contender in here. Number 7, Fiction. Fiction has only run twice and none of them on dirt. He's been away also since November of 2024. Has Fiction. That's a long time, although that's kind of a Jamie Poole specialty this season. He's been winning races with horses off 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and stuff like that. So Fiction's probably going to be fit there. And in fact, I popped the bullet workout there on June 21st, which is not Jamie's style. He rarely tips his mitt in the morning and rarely allows a fast horse to work fast and to show what he's got up his sleeve. That is very un-Jamie Poole-like there, what he worked Fiction in there on June the 21st. Now, Fiction, first time on dirt, and also Fiction has been sold since the last race over to the rare client. And when you see a name you're not familiar with, then pull it up, how the trainer does for a particular owner. And in this case, not so hot, because Jamie Poole, who's having a good season, is unplaced and 5 tries in tandem with Mike Gralbert. So I'm a little leery of this owner, and I certainly don't like a horse that's been away since 2024, except maybe once a year under rare circumstances. So I don't think Fiction is a big threat to the one horse here, Sonny's Prize. Fiction is going to be fit, though, and would benefit if the 1 and the 3 mix it up, I guess. This jockey, I don't know much about. This could be a career debut and maybe too heavy to take the full 10-pound allowance. Is that possible? Has there been a change listed in this race? I'm checking out the paddock scene now. And these horses are actually co-favorite at 7-5. Sonny's Prize on the inside and Cowboy Roy, the 3-horse. Man alive, this got to be Marshall Godsey money, huh? And it's not like this horse just threw one clunker, perhaps with some viable excuse, because the time before Cowboy Roy, who had displayed affinity for grass, drops into a claimer, first claimer of his career, and runs up the track. There is the 3-2 favorite. So he's been chalked twice in a row and lost those by a combined 22 lengths. But his adoring public is back for more in here to square off with Sonny's Prize, who, bona fide 74 Beyer speed figure not, has a world of early foot from the inside here. So I'm mystified by the short price on Cowboy Roy. I really am. Just kind of looking at the rest of them here. Bistino Bubel on number 5. Does that sound like a greyhound name? Or a trotting horse name? Just doesn't sound like a thoroughbred, does it? Eric Reed, his firsters tend to get bet low when they win. This one is not taking any play at all. 20-1 on the board is the other Eric Reed horse is 8-5. And it's got to go down from there, correct? As Cowboy Roy continues to be the favorite at 6-5. I don't see Marshall Godsey or this owner, Terry Stevens, and they work together. They're partners in crime with some very fast horses, some very good horses over the years. I really don't see Marshall Godsey as a guy that bets big or puts the word out in towns. He's kind of a good old Kentucky boy who just minds his own business, is unflinchingly polite, real gentleman in person. I know Marshall a long time, and he's one of the game's good guys, for sure. Surprised at the price point on number 3, Cowboy Roy. I got to believe some of that money is going to disappear, and it's going to make a beeline for the 1-horse here, Sonny's Prize. Back in a minute. Somebody said in the comments that the force every now and then is probably a live first or who should be taking play off those quick works. And I'm not being a wise guy or trying to rain on anybody's parade, but I might be able to save you some money here because were Danny Bird to win with a first time starter, an Ohio bred who was maybe even an Ohio accredited, which is an even slower breed of thoroughbred than the Ohio registers, in an open race that looks as lively as this, it would be just a total shock. I would be just stupefied and speechless and probably have to do a mic drop and conclude the show after this race. In the universe I inhabit, Danny Bird does not win maiden special weight races like this with Ohio breds that look this salty on paper against Kentucky breds and Maryland breds and other Kentucky breds and stuff like that. It's just not possible in the realm of reality that I occupy. And I'm not trying to be a wise guy or a smart ass or anything like that, but just inconceivable to me that the four horse would win this race. As still favored is number 3 Cowboy Roy. Second favorite is Sonny's Prize. I still maintain the late money is going to come in on Sonny's Prize. No matter what the will pays are on the daily double, I am going to bet Sonny's Prize in here. And that alone will guarantee that the late money pours in on Sonny's Prize. And I get CAW here. At some point, it finally occurred to me that I had to stop trying to figure out and rationalize and critique how Cowboy Roy could possibly be favored over Sonny's Prize and simply slip on over to my wagering platform and benefit from that insanity, that absolute madness. And it was one of my bigger win bets in a while. I made on Sonny's Prize and was able to get 8-5. Not the favorite is Cowboy Roy until the bitter end. The money keeps pouring in on a horse that lost his last two by 22 lengths, one favorite on each occasion. And I think it was fair to say he was in tough here. Not only with Sonny's Prize, but also with the outside horse Fiction, given that good performance at Woodbine. And despite the long absence, the fact that his trainer is specialized in straight up winning with horses off long layups. Sonny's Prize, it was a good time tonight. I'm not sure I want him back, though. Did you get a load of that action? I think therein lies the seeds of the big descent in buyers from a 74 first time out down to a 31 next time for Sonny's Prize. Sonny's Prize, I think, finished on the right lead, the correct lead, but I think may have either switched belatedly or short strides so badly in front, just kind of chops at the ground with game, but very shaky action that it was difficult to tell which lead he was on coming down to the finish. Not the stride of a horse with a real bright future. Sonny's Prize. Watch him in action. Watch the head on and watch the pan shot. And I think you will conclude also that Sonny's Prize has some serious issues back at the barn that will definitely limit his future. Sonny's Prize. Again, that is not the fluid athletic stride of a horse with much upward mobility. And once it's over, it's over. At that point, you got to start figuring out what your takeaways are and moving forward, what your opinion of the race you watched was and of the horses when they come back next time. I used to enjoy recapping races more than doing the pre-race thing. I really consider that my specialty, my forte. And sometimes dove, I think, more deeply into it than Michael wanted to. Sometimes she just wanted to turn the page and do the traditional, let's go on to the next race thing. We used to alternate doing the recaps. We'd come sit down and say, tonight you do the odds and I'll do the evens. And then it was an even race, I would recap it. It was an odd race, then she would recap it. But the other one would have a right and hopefully would chime in too to make it kind of a back and forth thing. My wagering platform almost didn't pull up there on my computer. What a disaster that would have been. Finally got it as they were loading into the gate to get my wager in at the 11th hour. 6 furlongs for the third race. This is a maiden $4,000 claimer with some decent current form in this race. On the inside, you got Whiskey Reserve. Whiskey Reserve drops from 12.5 down to 4,000. That's a 2-level drop at Mountaineer, although obviously a 12.5 maiden claimer is inflated, grossly inflated, especially at Mountaineer. Plus, Whiskey Reserve, the race that he exits there just wasn't all that solid on paper. In fact, it did have one thing, and that was early foot, which flattered Whiskey Reserve. Whiskey Reserve was one of those deals that I got into a little bit last night, where sometimes in a really bad maiden claimer, especially at Mountaineer, the horse with the most failed tries is also the most seasoned horse, and oftentimes mounts the strongest finish. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's often the case. So Whiskey Reserve comes moving at the end of the race that did have some early foot. I got no problem with that when it comes to Whiskey Reserve. He's been down to bottom before, though, and been found wanting his Whiskey Reserve, and he's 0 for 17 and counting Whiskey Reserve. Another concern I would have here about Whiskey is that he's been sold. He changes barns since his most recent race, and it's not like the previous owners or trainer simply leaves him behind for Juan Gotera to take up the mantle at Mountaineer. No, they sell this horse lock, stock, and barrel, and it was probably a preconceived deal. It was a done deal before this horse ever went to the post. I would say Whiskey Reserve. So I don't know what we do with that. Parker takes the call back, so that's a good thing for sure. Also, and I put this in my race flow notes, look at the bottom there. when it comes across the scroll there. I've got a race flow note. And I was still correct about my price point issue that I took with Sonny's Prize, but just barely. Is I quibbled and said 2-1 was too high. The price would be lower, and the price 8-5 was lower, but not a whole lot lower. So race number 3. Who moves early to exploit? Read the crawl there across the bottom, guys in green. To exploit field of which no entrant has ever led at an early call. Nobody in here has ever flashed much in the way of early speed. So somebody's going to capitalize. And Parker's made a career out of this kind of stuff. And he's got a good speed post position from the 1 slot coming across that gap. It seems like they usually, once they get across that gap, they make a big surge if they've got any early speed at a 6 furlong distance. And Whiskey Reserve ran in shorter sprints the last couple of times and does exit a somewhat speed-laden 5 furlong affair. So I know when you look at his form, you're thinking, Mark, are you crazy? This horse is not going to get the lead or beat that close, but he might. Look at the rest of this field, and he might. First-time starter El Pionero, the 2. We've seen a couple of firsters win for cheap claiming prices this season, but it's not common at Mountaineer, and I'm not familiar with this conditioner either. Super Justified, number 3, Tina Ramjeet, their husband, Andrew Ramjeet handles the reins here. Super Justified, last time out, won a distance of ground, won a mile, and was closing, I think, in a nominal fashion only, because Finding Candy, who's far superior to these horses, way better, got a loose lead, which he figured to on paper. He was some ridiculous price. I think he was literally 1-10 or something like that, Finding Candy. But he slowed up considerably over the final quarter mile there for some 30 seconds coming home. So he made Super Justified look like a closer. That 42 Buyer is a high watermark for Super Justified, who does drop in class and was in with a bona fide maiden special horse. And not just by off-turf standards, by dirt standards, Finding Candy, one of those Jeff Fletcher things with the Florida history. So Super Justified does drop considerably in class here. My only concern with Super Justified would be this. He's been so sluggish in his last couple of races that he could be behind the 8 ball here in terms of race shape, because somebody's got to step out and set the pace. And it's be somebody who doesn't usually do that, and somebody who may get brave, just kind of have a one-pace style, out there in the lead. But certainly a player is Super Justified. Correct? Yeah. I think you guys would agree, right? And thanks very much for making the scene, guys. And if you were happy to be watching me right now, yeah, Jerry said amazing exactly. Yeah, you know what? That would have been the cold punch, I think, my man. Because I didn't like the 3-horse there. I think I could not have made that more apparent. I like the 1 a lot to win it. And 1-7 would have been the obvious play. And that paid $30. Yeah, very salient point, Mr. Jerry, for sure. And I went through the whole litany last night that disagreement's what makes the game, and sometimes even animosity. It's a big boy sport. And some players consider it full contact, where they argue and go back and forth on social media and stuff like that. And if you were in the house and you're watching me and you've joined me in the dungeon and you're kind of incognito, do me a favor and subscribe, because you're just as welcome as the people who were fans of mine, longstanding fans. So Michael says, I think the 4 gets still lead in this race. Yeah, I think that's possible too. Michael, Findi Oro. Findi Oro embodies one of my favorite angles when a horse gets claimed or even sold privately for a very modest sum, and that horse doesn't perform right off the bat, as was the case with Findi Oro last year, after being a Ronnie Brown, a leave behind, a reject out of that powerful Charlestown-based Ronnie Brown barn. Findi Oro gets a rest then, and that's the key. Rest and good horsemanship can bring these horses back to the kind of form that caused them to be purchased to begin with. And Findi Oro has been pretty close to the pace a couple of times. Has been second at first call 3 times at sprint distances, and Weatherly likes to send more than Pagan, who was on this horse last time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Findi Oro out there winging it on the lead. Winging it, I think, might be too strong a term. I think maybe 23 4 or 24 could well grab early command here, you know? And sometimes over concern with who's going to grab the lead in a race completely devoid of early speed is an exercise in futility because you get evenly matched horses that aren't all that enthused about being up on the lead, and they're not comfortable, they're not relaxed because they're banging heads back and forth in between the horses and stuff like that. And they still set it up for somebody to put the big swoop on them and come from behind. It happens all the time, literally all the time. Number 5, runs like lightning. Sure is not lightning. Runs like lightning comes in for a low claiming price, takes the panhandle plunge, and has been freshened up a couple of months here. If you were desperate to find some kind of angle in play here. Just not much horse, though. Was 92-1 last time and kind of ran like it. And passed a couple of folks from the quarter pole to the finish. But remember how much they slowed up late in that race. The Boers Badenoff deal. Junito's boy on the outside, Christopher Gray, wins with about one long shot a year. And if you were fortunate enough to smoke him out on that one, then you can pay your whole nut for the season, believe me. And he will do it, but you won't see it coming. Unplaced 12 tries there. And enough sub-zero buyers to make you want to put your parka on there, to put your parka on. So I told you guys about the deal with me and the Diet Cherry Dr. Peppers and the contra temps. Just the bad unpleasantries that ensued between me and the girl behind the window that was taking the order. And I'm telling you, I was completely in the right and she was completely in the wrong. I didn't contact the manager or do anything about it, but I've since absconded. And I got a hard walk in today, uphill I like to go for a couple of miles. And it was very humid, although the temps have dropped off a little bit. A more reasonable mid-80s, but still really humid. And I worked up a big sweat. I had to have my beloved Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper. Well, I found out you can get them at Sheetz. So I went to Sheetz. And again, the counter girl strikes up this big conversation with a coworker when it's my turn at a rather long line. So I'm just about to blow my top. I'm just about to get angered to reach my boiling point with her when I realize to myself, hey, dude, if you antagonize one more chick that is peddling you Diet Cherry Dr. Peppers, you may well die of thirst over the course of this long, hot summer. So make nice and be a more reasonable customer. So that's what I did. So Banger says, the race is junk, not worth betting. Steve says, who can go the distance here? Before, that is, can he go the distance? SM Crawford says, and welcome in, my man. Thanks, Reddit, for letting me know Mark is doing this here. So somebody's putting my word out on Reddit. Eat some food so you don't sugar out tonight, says Todd McCullough. Yeah, none of my mom's chili, Todd, or popsicles like the date. Man, me and Todd go way back. Todd knew me back when. Todd knew me back when my foremost talent in life was shooting the jumper about, I would say, 90 pounds ago. And I was better known for my stroke with a round ball than it was for my handicapping skills. Chris Connor says, can your Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper be a bottle or in a can? Just isn't the same when it comes out of the fountain, Chris. It's just not. Say hi to your wife, too, for me. Nice lady. And I was fortunate enough to make her acquaintance in the simulcast studio. You know, you guys all have a standing invitation to visit me here at my domicile, in my house. And I will put pictures up when I get the technological skill to do that. I'll put pictures of my place up here. And you guys have an open invitation to come and visit me. And I mentioned my first guest, hopefully, is going to be the exceptional handicapper, Doug Salvatore, who took my spot at the Mountain and then moved on because his wife wanted him back in Erie, near the home front. And Doug has consented to be my first guest, but I'm going to have some of you guys guest in when I can figure out how to do a split screen and issue an invitation here from StreamYard. And yeah, we'll work that out somehow, for sure. I'm also going to have some dungeon hoodies made up with my logo, the two mean horses, which I really dig and kind of sort of invented myself. That's no great distinction in life now, is it, guys? Zero minutes to post, I see, and I have no intention of wagering on this race because although I make the likeliest winner, the 1 or the 4, I think the 3's got a chance too. And there's just not much disparity in price amongst the big three here, so to speak. There's just no value that I can point to. And I'm not real certain how this race is going to play out through the early stages either, which would also prohibit me taking some kind of a short price. Anybody in here. So good luck to you guys. A very logical result there. There were 3 2-to-1 shots in the race, and they all had seemingly just about equal shot. My observation in my notes and in my pre-race was who's going to get the lead in the field that has no speed? A race in which nobody's ever been on top at either the first couple of calls. Should have known it to be a first-time starter. El Pioneero was always destined to hit the wall there, which I guess in a sense made Whiskey Reserve and Fin d'Oro, and they were second and third into that turn. The de facto leaders, your de facto leader is held right down to the finish, but Whiskey Reserve was clearly superior to Fin d'Oro coming down out of a 12-5 claimer. Was a Whiskey Reserve there. So nothing revelatory there. No big surprise. It's just not a race that I felt like confident in betting on. Fourth race, 5 furlongs. I have got a race flow note about this one too. This is nominators in 12 months, fillies and mares. This is the low of the low because the fillies are slower than the boys. That's obvious in thoroughbred racing. And the more restrictive the condition, the worse the horses. And this is the most restrictive written for veterans, nominators in 12 months. And when horses like that go the shortest distance, which is routinely written in Mountaineer, 5/8, then you know they're trying to compensate for some severe deficiency. And in this case, the deficiency is no stamina, baby, no stamina. Everybody in here wants to lead, it seems like, huh? And they can't all get the lead. So my race note is with 5, and it could be 6, with 5 of these displaying front-running styles on form. Is this race going to be over with one quick knockout punch? And you get speed chasing speeds. Whoever gets the top hangs on. Or could somebody actually develop a passing gear and run by somebody in the late stages? This and other compelling questions will be answered in about, 12 minutes, something like that, when you consider the drag time on the races. The favorite here is going to be number 4, Scream Machine. I took a gander at the board, and Scream Machine's already heavily chalked. Scream Machine came here, I think, from Canterbury with a good form as a 3-year-old. It was kind of weird that she got sold off a couple of wins with all that upside, but she came here and kept right on taking down win purses, even through starter allowances, but just was not the same horse in 2025. Her big 15 minutes last season was to win first time off the bench there. And after that, her good form was right out the window, Scream Machine. Just not the same horse that she used to be. Now, for tonight's purposes, she does show some signs of coming around. Last time, gets a hard-earned lead at first call and succumbs grudgingly in deep stretch to a horse I think was the outright favorite, and a horse that got an inside trip there to save ground inside Scream Machine. Not a strong kicker, though. And when a little bit delicious runs by you in the late stages, I'm not sure it's a real good thing. And Scream Machine forfeited the lead the time before as well there. Now, Clouston is back as official trainer here on Scream Machine instead of his former assistant, Julie Stansberry, who was standing in for him, obviously. And he's got an outfit. He has a farm. I would say 8 or 9 miles from the mountain, maybe 7 or 8 miles from the mountain, and trains on his farm there. Also, plenty of stalls on the grounds, I'm sure. I don't know if Eddie swims them or not. I really don't. But whatever the case, you guys know that he was away for a considerable suspension for a serious substance. Bad test, positive test. And now he's back up here, and he's got 3 wins already in the season, so he's doing okay and gradually regaining his footing here. Scream Machine's not what she was, and normally I'd be a little leery of taking a real short price on Scream Machine because of the deterioration, because of how much she's lost off her fastball, but more importantly, because there's some other quick horses in here that could confront her early and make her life miserable through the early stages. Now, she's the strongest of the speeds, I would say, and seems to go up there and grab the lead or vie for the lead, which I guess makes her the likeliest winner here. But when you start looking at the other front runners in here, the cheaper and less accomplished, but sometimes quick, Nobby's Magic Sunday on the outside. What about Lovely Lee? Lovey Lee? Lovey Lee is never 3, 2 for 53, and away since September. But didn't Horatio Barber run something that took all kinds of unwarranted support off the bench here last week? And the horse did flash extreme speed. And Lovey Lee, never 3 or not, can be pretty quick at Tampa in some of those races. And it's important to distinguish, and you guys know this, between 6 furlong speed and 5/8 quickness, because they're 2 different commodities. And Lovey Lee has been known to get the lead at 5.5 and stuff like that. And not just a 6 furlong roll-up speed. So with fresh legs here, a potential pace player and maybe a spoiler through the early stages to make life miserable for a Scream Machine. Then on the inside, you've got Vitami. I know Vitami pretty well from the Silver simulcast screen. I have watched Vitami ply her trade at Mahoney over the cold weather months a lot of times, and seemed like she had a little more fight in her back then than she brought to the mountain. The aging Vitami, she's 11. Vitami on May the 26th there had a hard time getting the lead, and she looked like lone speed on paper and just backed up very readily there. Now, she gets claimed from Hobby Castillo, and normally John Brown's not supposed to do a horse that he claims from Castillo any kind of justice. Vitami comes back, and I see what the idea was. Let's run her 6. Let's be sure she gets a big lead, and maybe she can stagger across. It didn't work because she can't get 6 furlongs, Vitami. And in fact, she set it up for a couple of the closers to sweep the exact of their Vitami. Now, you shorten her up to 5/8, and that's a good thing as long as she gets the lead. But the catch-22 built into this kind of a distance switch is obvious. The obvious move for amateur trainers is, okay, my horse is getting a lead at 6 and can't hang on. I'm going to go 5/8 instead. With a problem, the nasty deal with the devil you make there in exchange for the reduced real estate, 220 yards subtracted from the distance, as you encounter other Vitamis, other horses with a quick turn of foot, the likes of which you weren't seeing in those 6 furlong races. So if you could see Vitami a length and a half, 2 lengths clear at first call here with some kind of a crystal ball, then she might have a chance to hang on. Might be possible. I think it's doubtful, though. Whether or not she holds service from the inside and keeps Scream Machine, putting a couple of lengths on her around that far turn, therein could lay the fate of this race. It really could. And they're coming towards the track. And I'll explore the remote possibility that somebody could actually rally or stock and win this, despite the wall-to-wall front-running styles. We'll go there after Peter Barry does the post parade. So John Brown, who conditions Vitami, also has Stolen Kisses in there, number 2, who I was giving a long look at this afternoon because Stolen Kisses has not been out since December. And strangely enough, John Brown, who's got 4 wins on the year, and I don't think has won 4 other races in his entire career at Mountaineer. 2 of those wins were with horses coming back off lengthy layups. So he's had the training saddle out. And Stolen Kisses has been away since December, which might not be a bad thing for a John Brown horse at Mountaineer at this meet. It has been first or second, 10 at 25, which is kind of a racehorse exactor record. And if you look deep enough on Stolen Kisses history there, Stolen Kisses has run from behind the pace at longer distances than this and held her own in the late stages. And that could translate to some rally here, couldn't it? For Stolen Kisses. The problem is it's probably going to be last. It's probably going to take a lot of kickback. It's going to eat some mud here. Stolen Kisses. Another thing that concerns me a little bit before I would dash to the windows and embrace the only horse in here who might muster a passing gear, Stolen Kisses, is what about the jock assignments here? Because it seems like John Brown, when he's got a live one, doles it out to Weatherly. Weatherly has ridden 62 times, 71 times over the last 2 years for John Brown. And Brandon Tapar has been on 5 tankers, only 5 mounts, and none of them did a whole lot there. So I don't know. Is John Brown telling us, Mark, forget your ridiculous theories about Stolen Kisses or some kind of a heroic off-the-pace move, having not started since December, and focus in instead on the horse that I put my go-to rider on, Vitami, who was 5-2. Vitami is just 5-2 up there. I've seen enough of Vitami's action, the 11-year-old Vitami. I really have, to be honest about it. And 4-5 on the Scream Machine. No, thank you very much. Ashley's Ring is in a barn that I like. I like the barn a lot. But I will say this. This outfit's production goes way down for this owner. The owner may well be calling the shots doing the training behind the scenes. I don't know in this instance. And Ashley's Ring, the former Jaybird horse, I gave her excuses at Mahoney when she pulled the rail and she was in with a quicker Vitami, ironically enough, a couple of times, and wasn't going to get the lead and no longer wants to go 6 furlongs. So I'm thinking when she comes to Mountaineer, she's going to be better in softer competition, might find a field that she can front early. I thought she was coming around second time off the claim when she ran into a buzzsaw, the super swift class dropper that I kissed for Kozan. But that led absolutely nowhere in her next one when she ran backwards there, Ashley's Ring. So she wouldn't shock me, but based on her last race, I really can't endorse her either. Ashley's Ring. So, yeah, I agree with the board. The likeliest winner is Scream Machine. Am I in any big hurry? As Leonardo DiCaprio said in one of the modern classic Westerns, isn't that what TNT brands some of the movies they show like 5 times a day in every single market? A modern classic of The Quick and the Dead, where Leonardo DiCaprio gets quizzed by Sharon Stone, the female gunslinger, destined to win the whole shooting match, the tournament. And he's asked if the Gene Hackman character, the sinister gunfighter Gene Hackman, and sponsor of the tournament is his father. And he says, sure is. And I'm about the only guy that can take him in a gunfight. And I ain't in any hurry to do that. I am certainly in no hurry to do that. Well, I'm in no hurry to take 4-5 on Scream Machine. And the only passer of opponents that I can possibly speculate any kind of a case for, and please don't come looking for me. This horse runs way up the track. What is it? 5-1 there or 6-1? Stolen Kisses. I think Stolen Kisses might be part of this ticket. So when Vitami, and this was a big race key, did not hold service along the inside, that gives Scream Machine a ticket to ride. Scream Machine, the strongest speed in the field, was always the most probable winner and was never going to lose when she was able to put a couple of lengths on that field into the far turn there. I thought the two would be first or second there. The two horse did run second, and Exacta paid almost $20 there. And I should have been all over that Exacta combination 4 and 2. I think it would have been a little bit closer. The two was never going to beat Scream Machine no matter what, but I think it would have been a couple of lengths closer if Vitami, ironically enough, the other John Brown horse, had done her part in that tandem there is the Rabbit and kept Scream Machine occupied on top. When she didn't, she left Stolen Kisses defenseless to the speed of Scream Machine as King Eddie Clouston gathers just a little bit more momentum with another win there with one of his old horses, Scream Machine. That Exacta was so obvious. Really, that kind of looked like a pumpkin somebody lobbed up the home plate. You'd have a hard time whiffing on, in my opinion. Not just because if you looked at history of the tour, she'd run in longer races and run pretty gamely without the lead sometimes because, and you got to check this stuff out, 2 of John Brown's winners this year, and as few races as he wins, and this was still notable, have been with comebackers, horses unstarted since last season. One of his horses holds a special place in my heart because I cashed one of my biggest bets ever. One of my best scores ever came up courtesy of an Arrow victory, cold, snowy day in Austintown, Ohio, about 5 years ago when I was trackside. A horse named 30 Silver Pieces. 30 Silver Pieces, by far the best horse John Brown ever had under his shed rope. I still remember that race. 30 Silver Pieces was a front-running route horse, allowance timber, 25,000 claiming level, stuff like that. Interesting race coming up. A couple of horses I like a little bit later on tonight. Interesting race coming up here, the 5th, the 6 furlongs. This is $5,000 claimer. Numbers twice in 2026 there. Races for 4,000 or less, not considered an eligibility, so this is not real restrictive. And this race has a little bit of everything. It's got a raw speed from the inside and winging ways. It's got a couple of starter allowance droppers, Buck and Dreamer and Magoo. Each start before last winner. It's got a couple of last out winners in a line, and Osprey, and a couple that ran second with the winging ways, the aforementioned winging ways, and Unraptured was second, at least 2 back, so some current form to go on here. And an interesting race for sure. We've got horses that ran a route last time and cut back. We've got some horses that ran in shorter sprints last time. And just all in all, a pretty compelling mix here for the 5th race at the place the action peaks. And thank you. You know what? I know you guys under other names. So SM Crawford, I'm sure I know you, man. But I don't know you as SM Crawford. So thank you for the kind comment. I have barely bet Mountaineer since Mark left, but things change. Glad to have you back. Well, it's good to be back. And thank you very much. I think I better throw up a quick disclaimer at this point, right? Just for fun. Because it's true. Do not adjust your monitor. Your host is the least attractive person on YouTube. And as I've stated before, and there should be this disclaimer, every telecast that I do here on my new YouTube channel, I did violate the 2 inviolable rules, the 2 things that you could never go against if you wanted to be successful on television. I'm not good looking. I think that's pretty obvious. I got a face made for radio. I'm not even an average looking guy. I'm homely. I'm straight up homely. And I'm not really likable either, not in the traditional sense. So it's a miracle of miracles that the show I hosted went viral and was just incredibly popular for so long because I don't have the two things that are supposed to lead to a long, successful career when you're doing live television or any kind of television. As the host, I am not likable and I'm not good looking. So, yeah, do not adjust your monitor. Your host is the least attractive person on television. And I used to ask the camera guy, monitor Greg Frank, a real professional and a good guy who had his own hand in the success of our show, the in-house feed from Mountaineer. I used to tell him, Greg, I still have a lot to say. I still have a lot of game on camera, but the camera better not zoom in too close, baby. So can you soften the focus a little bit? Maybe even put it out in the hall there. McMichael and I used to joke that every year we'd come back and we'd have the camera further out in the hall outside the studio to the point where we'd be holding up cards with our numbers on them and stuff like that. She didn't have to because she was always an attractive lady, but it was kind of a Beauty and the Beast thing when she and I did the Mountaineer show together, McMichael and I. So how many minutes do we have here for the fifth race, for this compelling fifth race? Yeah, 4 minutes to post. Still in the paddock. We got an eternity. Winging Ways is a 13-time winner, and I guess has never done it in classy races. Has made 140,000. It's not a king's ransom for the career this horse has had with the 7 seconds and 15 times third. Wins at Hawthorne with fresh legs, first time out this season, and wins clearly, which kind of makes it shaky if this horse seeks out Mountaineer to come. And usually when horses ship here from any place, including Hawthorne, which has certainly come down in the world the last few years, they're looking for softer competition, which seemed kind of strange with Winging Ways. Now, Winging Ways backed up after getting a loose lead. They can call it closer friendly, but Winging Ways topped the only other front runner in the race there and should have been good to go, but did shorten stride in deep stretch there, did Winging Ways. It wasn't a good performance, I didn't think, and I wouldn't exactly rate it a bounce. I'd look more at the psychology of why Winging Ways came here to begin with, but Winging Ways is an 8-time winner at 6 furlongs. On paper here, arguably the controlling speed. And Jamie Poole, very skilled horseman, doesn't go to the claim box all that often, but is capable of riding the ship here for Winging Ways, who's 3-1. And I would not be shocked to see Winging Ways go off as the outright favorite here. Right now, the chalk is number 4, Magoo. Magoo cuts back from a series of starter allowance races. He can sprint, though. Put up a lively Beyer figure 74 when he wins a $4,000 condition race going 6.5 furlongs in Phoenix and fought it out on the front end back in March. So he's capable for sure, is Magoo. Now, that win was a gimme, and he was incredibly underbet at 7-2. At first local look there because the opposing speed scratched out and left him in sole control of his own destiny out there, Magoo. And I loaded up on him late there, too. Magoo comes back in his next couple and just doesn't run like the same horse. Now, he's in with Force of Justice twice, but Force of Justice was kind enough to not deploy his extreme speed and let Magoo set the pace. And Magoo didn't do diddly about it. My big concern, though, is Leon on board here. If Silver really thought this horse were live, would he give the mount to Leon, who was only 1 for 65? In 2026, a jockey kind of specializes in coming from off the pace, kind of an obscure figure at the auction when he was here before. I don't know what this means for Silva to turn the mount over to Leon on a big class drop that may see him losing Magoo to the claim box. Just very strange to me. So SM Crawford said, I don't know him under another name. We've never conversed before, and he has been a fan for a long time and much appreciated, my man, because my fans are my friends, for sure. And I'd like to meet you too, man. It's an open invitation to meet all you guys if it can be arranged. Yeah, I would dig that a whole lot. Normally, I'm a disappointment in person because I am only articulate when I got a camera in front of me, and not always that articulate with the camera, to be honest about it. I'm rough around the edges, maybe a little bit more masculine, less sophisticated for sure, off camera. And the over under on F bomb usage is about 400 a day when I'm not on camera. But if you guys can stomach all that and also are willing to converse with a guy who's limited in his interests, sports is about it for me, and workouts, and when I'm away from the show and stuff like that, and a guy who is only articulate and reasonably sophisticated on camera, then I'd love to meet you guys for sure. So Winging Ways with a big chance, I think 5-1 there. Number 2, Buck and Dreamer. Buck and Dreamer was coming down to the world when he was super successful at Charlestown there in the $15,000 claimers, and it run well for 25,000 when he drops in for 12.5. It was kind of a discount giveaway at 30 cents on the dollar. And he struggled harder than he should have as a 30 cents on the dollar favorite at Mountaineer back in June of 2025. That claim did not work out right off the bat. Dave Treehorn is a master horseman. Tuned this one up with a big buyer comebacker, front running win going 6 off the sidelines. Now, the first quarter wasn't that rapid, almost 23. I'm not sure this front running route horse can deal with Winging Ways early. Buck and Dreamer. I don't know if that was a bounce last time or a signal that this horse is not okay. Again, simply because he had time off. Number 2, Buck and Dreamer. Tough read for me here. Number 3, Align. I picked on the price point here. He's 5-1 on the line, and I mentioned in my misconceived price point feature on the big red banner that he's going to be higher than 5-1. And indeed, he's 13-1 and beat a far lesser field than this last time in a race that set up for his rally. So he's pretty tough to like here. Skipping over Magoo, who we talked about, C-Spot Run has been off form. He's 12-1. Number 6, Osprey is 5-2. He's getting a lot of support there. The big boy wins his last couple of shorter distances and can get the 6 panels. Got to be careful, though, because sometimes horses like Osprey get the speed-laden setup at 5 or 5.5, and they're trying to pass stronger speeds and fewer of them that find the front end less cluttered. And these 6 furlong races, they're not always as closer friendly. And I know it sounds backwards, but it can be true for horses like Osprey, although he was really booking in the late stages last time, was Osprey there, 5-2. And on the outside, we've got Unraptured. Unraptured, if the one horse retreats again, it could set up for Unraptured. Unraptured was in a better race last time, and 5/8 was too short for him. I wish he would have mustered some kind of a rally because it was wall-to-wall speed in there, and he did not. Unraptured. But this Barnes having a decent year for sure, has been known to strike at a price, and Unraptured, a couple of good 6 furlong races. Both of his 6 furlong races this year were good. Although I will say the time he was second in a photo set up for his kick on June the 9th there. So this is kind of a complicated race for me. You really shouldn't punt in an instance like this. You should watch the board just like a hawk to see who might be undervalued in the win pool. And taking a quick gander here. I'm having a hard time with the 2-1 on Magoo. I'm not saying he can't win it, but the choice of jockeys just kind of puzzles me a little bit. 4-1 on Winging Ways, which I think would be fair. Although here's that jock again. I don't know about this rider, the 7-pound bug. Has he ever ridden anything before? No record on this season, and that kind of makes it a non-starter with me. Is he even going to hustle Winging Ways out of there in front, or maybe ride like a green, inexperienced jock in mortal tear and allow the strong route horse Buck and Dreamer to go out there and seize command? Just a lot of variables in here, just a lot of angles and a lot of moving parts and a lot of forms that are just certainly not look-alike and not cookie-cutter past performances in this race. And not a race I feel real comfortable with, and not a race I'm going to bet, guys. So the winner comes from way back on Rapture. Both of his 6 furlong races saw him mount a sharp rally this year to win one and take a tough beat in the other. And certainly he had some help up front there as Buck and Dreamer had his hands full with Winging Ways. The jock on Winging Ways looked okay on the horse, by the way, but the horse ran like damaged goods. And Buck and Dreamer puts him away and then is confronted by a line. At that point, Buck and Dreamer is probably supposed to go about his business if he dispatches Winging Ways into that far turn, except Buck and Dreamer. It still goes back to that 12-5 giveaway and his difficulty in winning on an easy lead at 30 cents on the dollar last year. This horse is not what he was, Buck and Dreamer. I think that is the advanced takeaway from that race for sure. Also, Osprey, and this is the advanced class in post-race analysis here, the post-mortem Osprey. And I mentioned this beforehand as well. I'm not redboarding here in any kind of a negative way. I mentioned that those short sprints can actually be easier to close in than 6 furlong races because you get wall-to-wall speed and those 5s and 5.5 sometimes. And not the case in the night 6 furlong race. So it wasn't quite the setup for Osprey that he gets in the 5 and 5.5s. For one reason, you've got a horse like Align, like way in front of him down the backstretch. So that's a horse he has to pass, the likes of which he didn't have to get by in either of those sprints last time. Didn't like the jock change on Magoo. I thought that signaled bad things, and Magoo did not run real well there. Either is Unraptured, gets up in plenty of time. And you know what? Should observe, we've seen a couple of front-running winners tonight. We've seen a couple of alert pace stalkers, middle movers, and now a stone cold closer who swings around them to get up in plenty of time from way back. So the oval looks fair at this point. And I mentioned last night in my bias notes, and you can find them on my website, not here, not my YouTube channel, but my website. And you can search that at the Dungeon 2025. And I keep diary form, track bias notes, and you can check those out for sure. Track bias is kind of a specialty of mine. And it seems like, and I mentioned this last night, I almost have to rubber stamp fair, time after time, which has never been the case at Mountaineer. The track man is the star of that racing program. However much he's making, however much money he's making, they're not paying him enough. The track super at Mountaineer because he is the star of that racing program. He's maintained this oval fair night after night after night in a manner that's unprecedented in the history of Mountaineer. And you can trust me on that because I can go back years and catalog the trends, the temporary trends and the biases and the built-in intrinsic biases that are true year in, year out to Mountaineer. What a job the track superintendent does at Mountaineer. I don't know who does that anymore, who was tasked with it. I think the last season I was there was by committee. A couple of guys worked in tandem to do it, but man, what a job they were doing at Mountaineer this year. The track super. And the whole maintenance crew, I would assume. But there was a high action horse race that we just watched. Just 2 observations. Osprey was too low and Magoo was too low, for sure. 5 furlongs for the 6th race. This is a West Virginia bred, a never two lifer for 75 claiming. I think we've got 2 West Virginia bred races tonight, the 6th and the 7th. And I like them both, especially the 7th. And my odds observation on Align, although Align certainly did outrun the tote board there in a big way. It held up for sure because he was 9-1 there and he was 5-1 in the morning line, which I thought was too low. So the 6th race, we got a field of 5, just 5 to the post. And you can see under my head scratching morning line odds, I have Camp Crystal listed 7-1. Why they do 7-1 is just beyond me. Should I go through the whole speech again about why a polished professional odds maker, and I don't know who does it in Mountaineer, so it's not personal, should never take weird in-between price points, 7, 9, 11-1. You don't do that. It implies a precision that no lines maker is capable of and completely misconstrues the purpose of what a morning line is for and what it's all about. Let aside that they don't hit the numbers anywhere close sometimes and don't structure it correctly. You just don't hit price points like that on your morning line. That is not my complaint with the morning line odds on Camp Crystal Lake, though. Camp Crystal Lake, and I posted this afternoon, is going to be lower than the weird-ass 7-1 price point listed on the program there. I took a gander at the odds just a minute ago here, and Camp Crystal Lake was indeed a lot lower is only 5-2 in here. Camp Crystal Lake, who I think is the one that maybe you want to bet on here and the one to beat, even though Amor de la Vie is also well supported, is 3-2 and probably bound to be the favorite. Amor de la Vie is 1-for-1 against West Virginia breds. Ben DeLong knows the ropes here and ran this filly a couple of times at Fairmount Park, where it can be sneaky tough in open maiden special weight races, and was in with a winner on April the 25th, I think, who had already run well once or twice at bigger tracks, and a horse that I think came back to be second on a big class race. Somebody really quick was dueling with Amor de la Vie also on May the 16th there. So there was some life in those races for sure. Coming in against West Virginia breds, turf aptitude or not, and it certainly wasn't established at that point. The public jumped on board, hook, line, and sinker, even money, and Amor de la Vie wins it. Unless Amor de la Vie much prefers dirt, though, I don't think this horse is going to win it, because I don't think that performance is going to win this. This is Amor de la Vie inherited the lead 3 lengths worth at the furlong grounds from a breakaway speedball that just hit a wall there. That's Jamie Poole in the paddock there with a red shirt on. I'm on her HBPA president. Anyway, looks like you're going to eat that one horse, right? Winging Ways from the 5th. But anyways, Amor de la Vie inherited the lead and barely staves off mediocre competition there. So might well be better on dirt based on those first couple of races. It may well be the likeliest winner here, Amor de la Vie. I kind of wonder, though, with a couple of more allowances, perhaps on deck for Amor de la Vie here, restricted allowance purses, then why go for the 7,500 here? Maybe it's okay because she's just not that good, I guess. But a little bit weird to see a horse win a maiden special with potentially lucrative West Virginia restricted allowances laying ahead, at least 2 more of them. And to come down for the 7,500 here, did beat the boys, or run against open competition first couple of times there, Amor de la Vie. As far as the 6 horse goes, and I was sure the price was going to be lower than 7-1, because I think the attributes are really obvious here to the sharp guys that dictate who gets played in the win pool. And the exotics as well. And Camp Crystal Lake is 5-2 now. Camp Crystal Lake up from Charlestown. And sometimes they had me at Charlestown because the Charlestown, West Virginia breds are far superior to their ilk, their brethren from northern West Virginia. And Camp Crystal Lake is up from third from last at 4.5. And the comment is furious rally there from between horses on April the 30th. And first time against winners. That was a better effort too, because Camp Crystal Lake was bumped roundly at the start and dropped out the back door and made quite a recovery run there. To miss by just a length and 3/4 was flying wide of the field late. It was a good performance there from Camp Crystal Lake, and that was not a West Virginia restricted race for Camp Crystal Lake. Comes back in restricteds here against fellow West Virginia breds, this Camp Crystal Lake, and second time against winners, they often improve. And Camp Crystal Lake maybe trips more cleanly. It doesn't get bounced around at the break like last time. Plus, the Shanley horses tend to outrun their Charlestown forms when they come to Mountain Air. Softer competition aside, because sometimes this guy inexplicably jacks them up in class and puts them in rarefied air too high for their forms, and they do outrun their forms when they come to Mountain Air for the most part, the Timothy Shanley horses. I'm going to stand aside for the post parade. I had a long time habit, which is how we used to roll at Mountain Air when they would cut my mic when Pete did the post parade. And then I'll be back to talk a little bit more about this race. Somebody just said in the comments, I think I heard an 8 in the stream of consciousness handicapping, presumably Unraptured, the winner of the 5th race there, that Mark provides. And that is a very apt observation, my man, because I'm so scatological all over the map when I break a horse race down. Hopefully there's a lot of information, a lot of expertise and enlightenment, a lot of local knowledge there. But yeah, I think I'm ADD and I've never been diagnosed, and I jump all over the map. Just kind of a free flowing consciousness thing sometimes when I break a horse race down. I think it's almost like one of those, what do they call the Rorschach test, or what are they when psychologist has you look at some scribbles on a piece of cardboard and tell him what you see there. I think sometimes my commentary is whatever you make of it, whatever you see it. And I really do sometimes. I'm all over the place sometimes because I'm not all that focused. I'm kind of a stream of consciousness guy. I have some talent as a writer. I've written some kick-ass articles and short stories and stuff like that. But I can't stay focused enough to write a novel. I write for 15 minutes. I gotta get up and walk around because I just can't stay focused. So that's one reason I enjoy doing this, because I can just jump all over the map as I see fit. And that's why sometimes, and I'm a pretty hardcore horse racing analyst. I hit it pretty hard, and sometimes get pretty deep, drill pretty deep down into these horse races with my analysis. And sometimes when I may be coming on a little bit too strong with that kind of stuff, it's my natural personality to break it up and go off the grid a little bit with some movie reviews or just some rants about my daily existence and stuff like that, which I don't just do on purpose to break up the monotony of just analysis on top of analysis on top of hardcore analysis, is it is my personality to jump back and forth between trains of thought. It really is. Baby Dog on the inside. Baby Dog was sluggish last time. Dropped back and took some kickback. He's going to eat some mud in here if he's not more alert than last time. Baby Dog, it just wasn't sexy for me. And I don't see Baby Dog as necessarily a horse that's going to go out there and hold on to the inside. No, he has been alert. And some of his short sprints before, I don't think it would behoove Mr. Batista. On the 7-5 favorite, Baby Dog, who was actually the chalk. Somebody's reading a lot into the class drop here from 12.5 down to 75, although that was inflated because those just weren't good horses. The Baby Dog was in with last time. Majesty's Cowboy used to have a lot of early foot, but boy, did that go south. Just not that quick anymore, but breaks pretty well. And might remember that he used to be a speed horse, correct? And then you've got the filly against the guys, Amour de la Vie there, who's entitled at this time of year to a 5-pound weight allowance up until September the 1st when he goes to 3. And that is universal, gets a 5-pound weight break. And West Virginia bred races are one of the few race types in which the gals can beat the guys, because a lot of times these fields have a serious case of the slows to begin with. And the big deal, the overriding factor, is the state restriction rather than the state thing. Also, fillies can beat the boys on turf, and fillies can beat the guys certainly in the vaunted time-honored 440s that Mountaineer loves to run. I think the 6 is the likeliest winner here, Camp Crystal Lake. Unfortunately, I understated my own case, if anything, when I mentioned Camp Crystal Lake as a bad morning line price point at 7-1. I knew Camp Crystal Lake would be considerably lower than 7-1. Little did I expect a mere 3-2, though, on Camp Crystal Lake. Well, the Mountaineer odds maker certainly having a real bad night, and I laid it out there 7-1, that silly in between price point that never should exist to begin with on any morning line was way too high on that winner. I thought that was by far the likeliest winner in there, and I took my medicine and made a healthy bet on a horse that I thought was going to be a short price, and the horse was indeed a short price. I posted my man Hubert Gaffney, good handicapper, salient observation there. Oliveros came in 5 over. Gave away the filly and mare allowance. I don't know if 5 pounds is equal to a full length in a mere 5 furlong race like that, but pretty darn close, I would say. And you make a really good point there, Hubert, as not many veterans are going to be able to do that weight, but there are a few of them out there that could have come in. And what was the listed weight on the program there for that horse? I think it was, 115. There are some journeymen that can do that, and gave it away completely. So I took a short price and did hit that winner. You could see coming like a runaway train when they turned for home. And you know what? I know that that winner's closing on some bad West Virginia breds and catches a filly coming down to the wire, but that race was not fast early. It was slow early. And if you look at the final 220, there, the final 8, it was like 12-4, I think, for the race officially. And this horse picked up a couple of lengths at least in the final 220 there. So he was smoking in 12 and light change for the final 1/8 of a mile. So the kick was for real, I think. And Tom Kurtz, my man, observes, I have a friend who's a strong handicapper who does kind of the talk through a race the way that Mark does. I can do the spit and polished, super organized, concise racing analyst thing. And I used to put that hat on every West Virginia Derby day. I know how to do it. And it is certainly one of my capabilities. But here, on my turf, on my website, where we're just being friends and stuff like that and going back and forth, I would rather keep it more conversational. I really would, than to do the spit and polished announcer voice and make sure to clip off my consonants and to elocute right to a T correctly and organize my thoughts. And I'm certainly capable of it. In addition to my kind of stream of consciousness thing and the fact that I probably took a deeper dive into the past performances and covered more of the field than a lot of analysts before me. I was named one of America's top 10 television horse racing analysts by the then much respected, now defunct Horse Player magazine a few years back, and I'm really proud of that. I was probably one of the first to really take a deep dive and cover all the horses. And also I'm proud of the fact that I was kind of a pioneer when it came to being very outspoken. I wasn't the first, but maybe the most outspoken in my blunt critique and sometimes criticisms of jockeys and trainers, which a lot of times did not endear me to them. I've even had some younger analysts that do the TV thing, the in-house feeds and stuff like that, refer to me as some kind of a role model, an inspirational force, maybe something they modeled a little bit of their style off of, and that's very gratifying at this stage of my life for sure. But yeah, I just want to kind of keep it conversational here on my turf, on my YouTube channel. You guys might be surprised to know that when I go to simulcast and hook up with my old friends, and that's the only reason I ever go trackside. I went to Mahoning a grand total, I think, twice over the cold weather months because I bet from home I get rebates now. But when I go over there, I'm not holding court. And I'm not putting out many opinions. I'm really not. I just kind of sit there and take the scene in and listen to my buddies patter back and forth about who they like and why. And a lot of times we just go on to different topics and discuss the old times. But I'm not a guy who sits around and holds court or lectures or tells somebody who I like unless I'm asked. I'm very different on camera than I am off camera. When I am off camera, if somebody asks me for a horse, I've only got a couple of rules. If somebody straight up comes to me, and they do when I'm at simulcast and I'm playing Mahoning, sometimes because people know that I really key in on Mahoning and I'm supposedly an expert when it comes to Austintown racing. I was in from square one there betting Mahoning in a professional spirit from day one. And I'm intimately familiar with the action over there and the footing and the surface and the horsemen and stuff like that. So when somebody asks me for a horse in person, maybe on a Mahoning race, I've only got a couple of rules and policies, and I will give anybody a horse that asks me. But one of my requirements is, please don't bicker at me and tell me who you like because you're asking me. You are asking me, okay? So keep quiet if you're asking me my opinion on a race. And not just in a friendly manner, like we're going back and forth, but as per like Mark, who should I bet on in this race? And my other requirement is pretty simple. If the horse loses, I don't want to hear it. Don't come back to me and complain or whine or bitch, because this just goes with the territory. That most selections and most horses, however well conceived as selections, are going to lose. That's just the nature of the game, guys. But I don't hold court with my pals or when I go to simulcast or anything like that. I keep pretty quiet. I am much less talkative off camera than you guys might expect. So be forewarned about that before you hopefully make my acquaintance, because I'd like to meet you guys in person for sure. Okay, it is 4 minutes until race number 7, and that lines maker is having a really bad night at Mountaineer, and is taking a lot of flack, and deservedly so, I guess, since Mountaineer reopened on April the 12th, I think. One of my morning line price points that I picked on here on my banner, do I have it posted there? I want to give Hubert Gaffney some credit for his comment there, so I posted his comment, but I'm going to go back now and post my morning line stuff there, my banner, about the worstest in the history of the world of morning line odds on this particular race card. And I had Camp Crystal at ridiculous 7-1 will be lower, and Shotgun Margaret 10-1 will be much lower. And when I say much lower, you guys kind of know where I'm coming from. What I'm saying is this is just ridiculous to put this horse at 10-1 on the morning line. And I just took a gander. What is Shotgun Margaret, like 6-5 at this point? A really obvious favorite. Shotgun Margaret here yet slotted at 10-1 on the morning line. A lot of times it's a racing official who doesn't have the time, and in many instances the expertise to do an odds line, but is tasked with it and picks it up in yeoman fashion along with other duties that they also shoulder. But it's still a bad morning line. And I'm qualified to critique it because I was the official odds maker at Mountaineer for some 40,000 races and more than 30 years. I think I graded out once as the 12th most accurate in America. I'm pretty sure, but don't quote me on that. I was a good, but not a great lines maker. I made some misses too. And we'll get into that whole thing some night, some of my theories collected from a lot of experience at being an official odds maker. Some night we'll get into some of that. And what is the current price on Shotgun Margaret? Yeah, 7-5 on Shotgun Margaret here. This is one of those allowance optionals to where the never twos, the lower condition here, the one-time winners can run allowance and be protected, while the two-time winners, the never threes, have to come out in the open and risk getting claimed for the 12-5. Usually the two-time winners dominate claiming prices or no claiming prices. And there are only two-time winners in here, and one of them is 2 for 53. Number 4, Sparkle in Your Eye, who may not be completely without a chance at 6-1 there. And the other is number 6, Shotgun Margaret. And Shotgun Margaret was second at Charlestown, where the races come up a lot tougher, and posted a buyer that's beyond the auspices of this field, the near 50. Trying to go 6.5, first time out there since December and April the 17th, and then comes back and was completely misspotted there in a non-state restricted starter allowance optional. And those horses could fly. That Marshall Godsey team that came off the bench to win it, and the second finisher with all that Gulfstream Park speed. And that field was just light years ahead of this one. And Shotgun Margaret didn't know which way they went right from the get-go. But if you look at the rest of the form and those two races to close out the 2025 campaign with a second and a win there, both times involved with Spun Kitten on the exacta ticket. Spun Kitten far superior to these horses. I think Spun Kitten, in fact, broke maiden by like 15 or 20 lengths or something like that right before those performances. Shotgun Margaret has kept better competition, has put up better buyers, and runs from a barn that wins a lot of these state-restricted races. Does John Schuler. Just one little tiny concern I have about Shotgun Margaret, just to kind of balance out my commentary, my critique of Shotgun Margaret here. And I will voice that concern after the post-parade. In theory, short-priced favorite without an early foot can be a bad bet in a race like this, but I think the speeds are probably going to come back to Shotgun Margaret for sure. I think the speeds are 6 furlongs shaky, to be honest about it. Good Holiday from the inside, and Carolina Knights, who was losing that big lead very rapidly coming down to the finish. I don't think that 28 Pyre Fig is sustainable either for Carolina Knights there, who was 40 cents on the dollar and certainly didn't win like it. No Cloud in My Stones was scratched, I think. Yesterday in favor of this spot. No Cloud in My Stones. A lot of horses that win at first asking don't turn out to be much. And I suspect that could be the case with No Cloud in My Stones because nobody from behind her has come back to do much. And that race had a super case of the slows on the vaunted Beyer Speed Fig scale. Sparkle in Your Eye is only 2 for 53, but is one of just two-time winners in here against the one-time winners. And Sparkle in Your Eye did win 3 starts back and comes from Charlestown. And those are the two magic words, Charlestown, when it comes to Mountaineers state restricted races. Number 5, Eyes on the Candy, rolled by some 11 lengths on May the 11th. But that was, I think, an illusion because you talk about a bad field. That was an incredibly bad field in a race that has not been productive. As Eyes on the Candy came back at 5-2 and just did not fire at all. So Shotgun Margaret, I think, looms by far the likeliest winner here, a horse that looks very difficult to beat, Shotgun Margaret. One little concern I have, Shotgun Margaret never faced a claiming price until April the 17th, and off the bench with fresh legs comes in for the $5,000. So what was that about? Although Shotgun Margaret was quickly upped in class for the subsequent outings, June 2nd, and then the night's engagement too, Shotgun Margaret. What's the price on Shotgun Margaret? It was 10-1 in the morning line. Yeah, even money. Yeah, it was never going to be any kind of a price, Shotgun Margaret. What if the 4's got a chance to run behind Shotgun Margaret on this ticket? Do you guys think maybe somebody could steal it from Shotgun Margaret, who completely lacks early speed? I don't think so. I don't think the get lead candidates in here are really capable of that, but I could be wrong. And we have seen at least one deep closer to the swing wide and come around. I think 2 of them, in fact, in the last 2 races. So the door's open for Shotgun Margaret's style and probable path in here.
Morning lines maker just having an awful race card at the mountain. Shotgun Margaret 10-1 on the morning line. Shotgun Margaret was 2-5 and wins like a 1-10. I think Man of War used to go off at 1-100 with the books back in the roaring 20s or the late teens, didn't he? Shotgun Margaret wins like that in that manner. John Shore doesn't get the cash first and second there because the two horses disqualified for backstretch interference. I saw it 6-4. That was my likeliest exacta there. I didn't play the exacta. I just paid $7 on that exacta as the two-time winners officially finished first and second there. Shotgun Margaret was never going to lose that race. It was just never going to happen. It was pretty obvious. Painfully obvious, was it not? I guess bridge jumping is dead. I guess it is completely out of vogue now because some 30,000 to win on Shotgun Margaret, just 9,000 to show. And that seemed more certain than death and taxes for Shotgun Margaret to finish in the first three there. And if they could get down, I think they would get down. But whoever accepts the bet has to pay the minus pool. So a lot of the outposts won't accept huge show bets. And your wagering platforms, some of which give out rebates, tend to discourage that kind of thing. They don't like it. And a lot of them won't put up with it. The times, they have changed considerably from back when, and I can remember a 4-life allowance. Joe Woodard, remember when Joe Woodard trained for Billy Hayes? He used to refer to Billy Hayes as a Bond villain, Goldfinger, because he was a very manipulative, very sharp guy who switched a lot of things around to his benefit over the years. He and Joe Woodard, they were the bad guys who rolled in wearing the black hats, and they ran a coupling back when there were still entries in Mountain in a 4-life allowance. I think South Seas was one of them. I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, something like that. And I think that entry took like 220,000 to show. Those days are gone because nobody accepts those kind of big show bets anymore. And you can get booted off a wagering platform for engaging in that kind of promiscuous show wagering. Guys, I posted Hubert Gaffney's comment up there. Arroyo likely to get dazed for that. They want to slow him down. I said the week before last, this guy's light burns a little brighter. He is very energetic,
looks for every edge he can take, and is kind of his own man out there, Arroyo, who sometimes rides a couple of horses in the same race, if you get my drift there. And he might be too much for the Monthurst stewards to handle, Mr. Arroyo. I quite concur with that. Anyways, I did glance at the last race. I'm going to be honest, I didn't do the full dress military handicapping thing. I might lean to the 8-horse Chewenda, but not in a big way in the nightcap here. And since I really didn't do my due diligence, and since my wife is off for the first time in days and my son is home now from his nightly stroll around the local thriving metropolis of Chester, West Virginia, I think it behooves me to get up and spend some time with the family. So I'm going to bid fond adieu to you guys until tomorrow night. Same bad time, same bad channel. I will come up in about 15 minutes to post. Thanks very much for participating, guys. And if you were on the scene, much appreciated. And also, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Hate to sound like a broken record, but that's the only way I'm ever going to get a dime out of this in the long run. Love to do it. Love to hang with you guys. Mark Patterson out.